The 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗏 is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members. Hello and welcome to the first 𝗲𝗏𝗏 Weekly of 2025. Each week we'll continue to bring honest views and opinions on all the latest Hull KR news. Joining me for this first episode of the year is an old favourite, as former host Joe Appleyard joins me to discuss the upcoming Amsterdam Challenge and much, much more. And if you're watching live on YouTube, then get involved in the comment section. And if you're listening on podcast, then let me know your thoughts over on the 𝗲𝗏𝗏 social media channels. Joe, Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too, mate. It's been a long off-season for all of us, hasn't it, really? And we're getting closer. Obviously, that first friendly's just around the corner in Amsterdam. Then before you know it, it's the Challenge Cup and then Castleford at home. So I had a long off-season and, buzzing to get back and be back on the pod.
Yeah, I was thinking, is it too late to still keep wishing people Happy New Year? Are we past the threshold now? Or
I think so. I kind of get bored of it after probably, 2 minutes past midnight, to be honest with you. I was asleep. So, yeah, not really.
Well, do you know what? For the first time in God knows how many years, I actually did stay up past midnight. Nice. So normally I am tucked up in bed come 11 o'clock, bringing in the new year the next day. Well, no, I stayed up. So yeah, but no, same as you, Joe. Absolutely buzzing now. The season's starting to feel a lot more real, isn't it?
It is. And there's been loads of off talk as well, haven't they? Obviously, I'm sure we might mention what's happening with Salford at the moment. It's been a long off season for them as well, and it's been kind of drama free for the Robins, hasn't it? Which is kind of nice. We're just getting on with our business. Obviously, we've got a big point to prove after what happened last year, which we'll probably go into as well. But yeah, it's obviously now the Challenge Cup started. Watched a bit of the amateur action last week, and this is the moment now, isn't it, where you hear all the coaches in the media saying we're fed up with training, bring on the games. NRL's close to starting. We've got Vegas, hopefully a big international calendar, big calendar for the Robins as well. So yeah, thick and fast it's coming round, and can't wait for the Challenge Cup game first. Obviously, friendlies aren't really my cup of tea, but looking forward to that Challenge Cup game before Cass.
Yeah, and if anyone who's been over on social media, particularly X, they'll know how tiresome it's becoming, fending off messages from supporters of rival teams. I'm getting sick of it. I'm just ready now to get some action, get some games played and get some points on the board.
Yeah, I am. It's boring in it sometimes, X. I like banter, and some of the stuff that gets put on Rugby League Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it's hilarious. But I will not miss seeing where Mark Sneed or McDonald's going, or Rovers aren't sold out, or Hull have won the Challenge Cup before a ball's been kicked. Abdul's going to gold. Every rumour that comes up every day is boring. Let's just get the season on. And people do that because to fill the boredom, don't we? And we've all been probably guilty of it, and we all get trapped into it. I fell for a few things this year as well, which I'm pretty annoyed at myself. I don't normally do that, but again, probably just a bit bored and thinking I'll cling on to this, and rugby will be around the corner if I believe it.
Probably because you was rattled, Joe. That's what it is.
Rattled, yeah, rent-free.
Yeah. Right, Joe, we'll start off. Obviously some sad news. A guy I've had the privilege of meeting on a number of occasions, someone who was red and white through and through, someone who helped your love affair with the Robins probably kick off. Obviously, that was a sad passing of Alf, your granddad. I thought it'd be nice to pay tribute to him at the start because he was a red and white through and through.
Absolutely, mate. Really sad, and thank you, mate. He absolutely loved the podcast, didn't he, from when we first started hosting it. So to say he'd been mentioned on it, he'll be buzzing up there, won't he? But yeah, really sad. Obviously, we lost him just after the new year, and I think he epitomised what Rovers was. My first memories was going with him, my mum and dad, and the Moxons and their granddad Gerald, who's sadly not with us as well anymore, in the West Stand, and seeing us in front of a few hundred, people, thousands sometimes, taking me to the Speedway, everything like that. And, you knew how close I was to him, and for him being ill last year, not watching him, not being able to go to the grand final was really heartbreaking for the family. But, I just want to say a big thank you to like Jez Litton as well, Elliot Minchella, Willie Peters, because since the last few years, you know, they've really looked after me granddad, doing him voice notes. Jez has come round a few times and it was really comforting, you know, so just a big thank you for them. But yeah, we're all going to miss him, and Rovers ain't going to be the same, but he is the reason, and if I have to sum him up, he's the reason why I love this club as much as I loved him. You know what I mean? Because he's through and through a Robin. Born in Westall. You know, don't let him forget that he was born in Westall. And he moved over, obviously, when he met my grandma and stuff like that. And he's been a Robin for, you know, he was a Robin for 60, 70 years. So we're all going to miss him. And hopefully now he gets to see his beloved Robins in the best seat in the house, finally win a trophy. He always used to joke about it, saying, I'm never going to see it, you know, so hopefully he'll see it up there this year or maybe in the next few years. But yeah, thank you for mentioning it, mate. And I know you was close to him as well, obviously, with the relatives. And there's been loads of fans and loads of people who have wished me, you know, condolences as well. So me and my family really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, hopefully he gets the opportunity to look down on the red and whites, and he gets down to look at them lifting a trophy. What a great tribute that'd be. So fingers crossed, let's see what happens. But yeah, very sad, but also lots of great memories as well. So let's move on to the Amsterdam Challenge, Joe. It's just round the corner. Anyone who can see on YouTube now, notice I've got the Holland flag behind me in tribute. Not quite the orange one, but the Netherlands flag. It's something different, isn't it? It is something different. It's something that's been ridiculed by some people, but I think, you know what, the Robins, they've done something different, and they're not afraid to do something different. We've seen what they've done with the club so far over the last few years. This is the next thing that they want to try, and good luck to them with it.
I think it's not just about the game as well. You know, one of my best mates, Kieran, he's the media guy at Rovers, and he's flying with Craig Franklin in the early hours of tomorrow, and they're going to schools all, you know, tomorrow, doing community classes. Ben Parker's been over there the last 2 days. So it's about networking in it, and I know it sounds cringy, but it is about the bigger picture, and it's not going to be a spectacle. We'll probably go on to what the team's going to be in a moment, because as we're filming this, we don't know what the 17 or 20, whatever he's going to go with, going to be. It's not going to be the strongest by a country mile, and I think it does take the shine off it, the fact we'll probably be playing York in 2 weeks' time in the Challenge Cup. But it's exciting. I'm personally not going. I paid a few holidays off instead and looking at getting an house soon, so I've kind of put it on the back burner. Probably would have gone if they'd have played a better team, but it'd be good that we can watch it on a stream. Great for the game in Amsterdam. You know, there's the women's origin before it as well, so I think it's just getting 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏𝗏's name somewhere else in it. And yeah, good luck to York and Rovers, because we're trying out in a country that's not known for rugby league, and I think with the distance on the ferries and the flights being so close, it could take off. It might not. You never know. But you don't get wet, do you, without dipping your feet in the pond. And let's just wish the club the best of luck. And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Don't really know how many people are going over there and stuff. But either way, there's that party at 𝗂𝗂𝗄𝗃 in Amsterdam Centre, which is a good place. And it's probably all about the weekend as well. It's about getting over there. Probably the young lads and a few fringe players getting some minutes in the belt. But from a Rovers point of view and a networking point of view, I do think it's a little bit bigger than the game.
Yeah, of course, and it's a firm commitment from the club as well, because this ain't going to be a one-off. They are going to be looking to do other roadshow games, whether it's in Holland or whether it's in other places. And I think for them, it's about leaving a footprint in Holland. It's about not just coming in, playing a game and leaving. It's about trying to grow the game. I mean, you only have to look at the diminishing talent pool in this country to see that you've got to cast your net much further than what you're used to, and the fact that if we can lay roots down in somewhere like Holland, who knows where that might lead to? Maybe not next year, the year after, but 5-10 years' time, we're trying to inspire that next player who might want to come and play for the Robins. So, and also it's about people just loving the game. And if they love the game, we want them to love all Kingston Rovers, which I'm sure they would do.
Well, it's the same as, you know, like from the fan point of view, there might be some, you know, from Dutch people who go to the game, fall in love with it and think, do you know what, I'll go to Hull a few times a year on the ferries and go watch Rovers. It might do. In 5-10 years, we're not going to see Holland being top of the world rankings and beating Australia at the SCG, are we? But we might get 1 or 2 players that come over, make a trade in the Championship, Super League maybe. So again, we're giving people the opportunity, and I think it's all right, people going, oh, you're playing on a shed in Holland and stuff like that. So what? Do you know what I mean? The Challenge Cup's a prime example. Some Super League teams are going to be playing amateur teams, aren't they? So we're at least trying to expand and broaden our horizons, and there's nothing bad can come of this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does, it's a masterstroke by the team, isn't it? So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but on the whole, looking forward to, you know, having a Saturday afternoon with the lads, watching it on our stream, having a few beers, and probably whetting the appetite for the Challenge Cup game in a few weeks. I don't like missing games. I don't miss many, but just with logistics at the moment, probably easier not to. But glad that it's streamed, and be interesting to see probably some new faces in red and white, as well as some young kids who we've known for quite a while who are knocking on the door.
Yeah, we'll come on to the squad very shortly. I think Matt Shaw, your former colleague, he reported in the paper that they're expecting a crowd of about 2,500. And what was encouraging with that is that half the tickets are reportedly being sold to locals, so people obviously over in Holland. So that means that there is going to be a healthy contingent of Rovers and York fans travelling over. And I tell you what, I mean, some of the younger supporters going to maybe Amsterdam for the first time, the chance to also watch Hull Kingston Rovers. It's like, for some people, it's like a dream come true.
100%. It's a holiday for some people, isn't it? People base their holidays around like Catalan. Like, for example, me and my mates, we're doing a week in Lorette and stuff next year. We build it around Rovers. So people will be doing that with Amsterdam. And yeah, it's great. There'll be loads of, you know, young supporters going over there. It's a weird and wonderful place. And obviously, if you're doing the dash, you won't experience a lot of it. But people are staying over for the weekend. And that's great. You know what I mean? And I think that's really good that there'll be a lot of young students probably who have been given tickets, probably the ones who the community have been working with as well. So again, it's getting them involved, and they will maybe start to watch a game on Sky and fall in love with Rovers or a player or even another Super League team. You know what I mean? It might not just all be about Rovers, but at least we're paving the way. And obviously, would love to be playing in Vegas like Wigan and Warrington are, but maybe that will come in a year or two. We're at the minute doing what we can locally and just across the North Sea, aren't we? So let's wait and see. I think it could be a really good venture, and again, in the long run, if it does work, we can look at doing a Super League game over there against a team maybe like that doesn't get many away fans. So there could be, you know, we could max it out from a Rovers point of view. There's all them branches off that tree, isn't there? But at first, we've kind of planted it, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, for me, I think that's the ultimate ambition, isn't it? To play that Super League game on the road. Although, can you imagine telling some of the Rovers fans in the East End that they're going to miss out on a home game if it means being played somewhere else? You know, I don't think some people will be too happy. But I think for me, that's when that's when it really gains the interest, not just from locals and stuff, but that's when, you know, look at Wigan and Warrington, slightly different circumstances, but look at the interest they're generating playing in Las Vegas. And who knows, the Robins could be in the hat for playing there in future years. There's no doubt that they'll be knocking on the door to making the trip. And I tell you what, Joe, I bet you don't miss that one.
No, I won't. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't interested. If for me, if he was doing if he was going for next year, or the Rovers, Leeds, Saints who haven't gone, they'd be the three of my pick who'd be wanting and probably willing to go at the moment. And yeah, I just hope they do it in good time so we can book and save, so I can win me fortune on 22 in the roulette table. Yeah,
no, it is going to be good. If anyone has heard the Danny Ward interview that he did on Radio Umberside, and that was prior to us doing this live, and of course, if you're subsequently listening to this on podcast, he confirmed that the squad will be flying in on the day of the game and flying out straight afterwards, which means that probably Dean Hadley and Jared Waghara-Hargreaves won't be playing because they're at Belushi's the night before with Willie Peters. And we are probably expecting to see a more reserve academy style team, aren't we, rather than the first teamers who we expect to line up against Castleford for round one.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he threw, and I say a curveball, I don't mean a curveball in this, just because I've kind of worked out what the 13 could be in the subs. I think he might play one, maybe two middles, even like the first teamers, like a Jesse or a 𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Because I think if you're looking at what the team's going to be, if it is 17 onwards, like he said, if you're going off squad numbers, 𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃's 17, you know, if you want to read too much into that. But you've probably got PLT at fullback, Lee Kershaw, Louis Gorman, Broadbent, Harvey Horn, or Neil Tachambi, that'd be the back line. You'd probably think Danny Richardson in the halves, wouldn't you, with a Lenny Ellis type? Then you've got the likes of Leo Tennyson, Bill Leyland, Debry Doro, Leon Roon, AJ Wallace, Jack Brown. That's probably a 13 maybe, or Fishwick at 13 and Brown in the props. And then obviously on the bench, you're going to have a lot of reserve players, a lot of kids who we probably wouldn't have known of. But yeah, I just think because if you name that 13 and then you look at the bench, as much as it is a friendly, you probably could do with with a middle in there. It's a shame, maybe Sam Luckley, he was injured in pre-season, so he might not be ready. But someone like that, just to tighten up the middle, because we saw last year against Sheffield, as much as it was good to see the young lads play, there was only probably George King, who played, and they kind of did do us over in the middle.
Well, I was going to say, Joe, I think there'll be a lot of eyes on this from a red and white point of view, because don't forget that Sheffield Eagles friendly, Willie Peters used that as a bit of a battering tool, didn't he, to some players who he didn't think had been necessarily training as hard as he wanted them to do, or that hadn't been necessarily showing the right attitude, I think. So if people do see maybe some players who you wouldn't expect to play, there'll be maybe some questions to say, hang on, are these lads not performing in pre-season? Because Willie Peters was only, I think, was it last week, or where he said there was a few players not living up to the KR values or the DNA of the club. So that's why I think there'll be some interest in this lineup.
Yeah, I do. But I'd say to people, do not panic if somebody's in the 17 who was playing on Saturday, who you think should be starting, because it don't mean they're going to end up getting released in a week or so. I do think we will have to play maybe one or two of them for minutes as well. Tech, if it was a prop forward, they haven't played since October. Do you know what I mean? A few minutes, like starting 20 and then coming off, won't hurt them. You know what I mean? They might do it for fitness-wise, if they wanted to try a different position. We've got a lot of depth this year as well. So again, there might be, go on, prove your selection worth. But I think it won't just be the 17 plus. I think there might be one or two. How many minutes they play, if they're even involved, then, God knows, I'm sure Willie will do another interview before the game, and we're still a few days away from it, aren't we? But it'll be interesting. And I'm also interested now to see York's team, because they've got Keighley next week, and then they could have Rovers the week after in the Challenge Cup. So will they go full tilt? A few ex-Robins in there, Liam Harris, Jack Potter, Kieran Buchanan, who was at FC as well. So they've got a decent team. Paul McShane's gone there from Cass as well. So there'll be no mugs. I probably think they're better than Sheffield was last year. So honestly, if we are predicting it, if we do play a team like that, who we think it's going to be, I don't think we'll probably win, but it doesn't really matter in my eyes, because we didn't beat Sheffield and we ended up getting to a grand final, does it? Friendlies don't mean anything, but just get some minutes in the legs, get through it unscathed, because we've got a very good reserve team as well. And obviously the reserve league's coming back and hopefully run proper now under a proper regime. And we want to be going for that as well, don't we? That you've got lads who won't be playing every week if we can stay injury free, touch wood, like last year. So them lads who are probably going to be resis this year, they've got a point to prove, and this is their chance to go to Willie Peters. You know what? Let's see if you can throw me into the hat as well in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, and it was only a couple of days ago. It was 2 years to the day that it was Willie Peters' first game in charge. That cold night in Featherstone, and of course, Craig Hall's testimonial, and not the result many people would have expected, but highlights pre-season. Really, it's a run out. The result is largely irrelevant in a lot of cases. Willie Peters will be casting his eye on them players to making sure that they're doing what he wants them to do. The scoreline is just a secondary concern.
Yeah, it is. And I was at Hull-Lav at the time, and there was only me and James O'Brien, the one who obviously before me at Hull-Lav as well, who was doing the interviews, and we stood on the pitch at about 10 o'clock at Featherstone, and I've never seen a coach so mad. Obviously it was his first game, uncompetitive. He was absolutely livid, and me and James said in the car park, he's not going to take any rubbish from this team. Like, he was fuming, and it was a friendly, and yeah, there was a bit embarrassing that night, wasn't there? I don't think they was ready for the cold and the hill and everything like that. And I think now he's implemented that into it. God forbid if they did it again, because we know what he's like, don't we? He's brilliant for a reason, because he's ruthless. Yeah,
absolutely ruthless. And it'd be interesting to see Dan. I mean, there's every chance that York and the Robins could be travelling together on the same plane. And the other factor, I think, just on the squad as well, Joe, is that considering, it is a costly move to be flying players over and taking, the squad may be limited. We might not see a raft of players. We may see maybe a 20-man squad going over, or even less. It might be 18. Who knows? But it'd be interesting to see whether Applegarth and Willie Peters have had that chat between them to say, look, this is a squad we're playing, because, like you said, York have got Keighley next, which is a huge game for them. Potentially, they've then got the Robins again. So that's 3 big games in 3 weeks. So you don't want to gas your players too early, whereas Rovers have the luxury, potentially, with the squad size, of playing that potentially weaker side. But Willie Peters will definitely be using this to rule, put some eyes over some of the new recruits. People like Leon Ruin, for example, who've earned his side, earned a contract. Now Willie Peters will be keen to see what he does on the pitch after a grueling pre-season.
Of course, and you can go through a lot of the signings as well, can't you? Bill Leyland probably not going to be there with Mickey Mack and Jez, obviously, as the starting and bench 9 and 14. But if there's an injury, McAloram's 36, he could be ready just to jump straight in. Even Lee Kershaw on the wing, obviously, we would probably think it'll be Davis and Burgess when come round 1. But Kershaw's proved his worth at Super League. He's not come over here just to sit on the bench and play reserves and watch from afar, has he? So it's really interesting. And again, like you've mentioned, Leon Roon, who kind of struggled at FC, and I saw him play for Donny last year when I was doing their media. Honestly, didn't set the world alight, and I'm one of them signings where you think, why have they done that? So go prove us wrong. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting, and then you can flip it on its head and look at the young lads, Leo Tennyson, Zach Fishwick, who have been starved of opportunities for obvious reasons, but they're coming to a age now where they're not just having a laugh training and I'm a Rovers first team. They want to go and prove a point and play minutes, don't they? Because if not, then there's no point in being there. So it's a really good dynamic, and I think I'm quite looking forward to seeing what this reserve lineup with maybe a few sprinklings of first teamers can do, because sometimes them games can be the ones where you go, God, look at Louis Gorman last year. We looked at him, didn't we? And thought, well, what a player he is there. Hopefully someone goes and do it again in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the squad in a bit more detail now. And what we're going to do is on the Robin Pod in a couple of weeks, we'll do a more in-depth pre-season season preview. Robin Pod, we'll look at the Robin's chances. We'll look at the other sides in Super League, the chances that they've got, some of the signs they've made, when we're much closer to that start for round 1. But I thought it'd be good, Joe, for us to just go through the squad and literally each player to get your opinion, get my opinion on where we think they will be in terms of the squad and what we hope for them. So if we start with, we'll literally go through the numbers. Number 1, high levels. Cemented that place for you for 2025, that fullback starting spot?
Yeah, he starts fullback for me. Obviously, a bit cold at the beginning, when he was on the wing and then moving to fullback, came into his own in the middle of the season. I think the main aim for him is, with 𝗬𝗏𝗧 heavily rumoured to be joining the Robins next year, and he's off contract, go earn another contract, stay injury-free, keep your form, give Willie Peters something to think about. But yeah, 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏 starts fullback for me, and he'll cement that one spot. Yeah,
and you know what? I think what will give him a huge amount of confidence is the fact that he was injury-free, that he didn't sustain a big injury that put him out for a few months. And once he did get that full-back berth, he actually repaid Willie Peters' decision to move him back there. And obviously then he could subsequently, he reaped the rewards. But he's a lovely player, and he glides, just that little turn of pace. I think that when he played against Huddersfield, when he did make that switch, and then I think that just sealed the deal. So look, there you go. That is exactly why he's in that fullback berth, and he earned it. And he doesn't seem to have lost any pace either for someone who's been around the game for a long time.
Yeah, and obviously he's had another year in pre-season training with Tyrone and Mikey as well, so that span's kind of the same, isn't it, barring Matt Parcell for Mickey Mack. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what he can do, and obviously he's one of them where you're probably talking about he's 32 now, so he hasn't got long left in the game, but still will do a job at Super League level for a few years. Will it be with Rovers? He's got a year to prove it, hasn't he? So yeah.
Yeah, Tom Davis, number 2, new recruit from the Catalan Dragons. Has some great try-scoring seasons down there in the south of France. You'd expect him to get that starting spot as well?
Yeah. Don't think he had the best season last year. I don't think Catalan did. There was very poor, very mismatched. I don't think that they had the best team, and Steve Mack was under a bit of pressure. I think he can be a bit more relaxed now, back in England, loving it. He's obviously did an article with Hull Live, didn't he, a few months ago, saying how much he's settled, him and his partner. And yeah, he'll start on the wing for me. I do think we'll swap over. I think Burgess will go on to the left to replace Ryan Hall, and Davis will go on the right to replace Burgess. But looking forward to seeing him. His backyard carries are going to be vital, because obviously we're missing Ryan Halls now, so he's got to step up, got to have a bit more. I think he's a confidence player, and now he'll be playing in front of Rovers fans who'll be behind him all the way. Hopefully he can come out of his shell a little bit more and get back to his best like he was a few years back.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, Tyrone May, Mickey McAlorum must have had a huge impact on him signing for the Robins. Them little conversations that players will have, about coming in to somewhere like Ulkington Rovers and working under Willie Peters. no doubt they'll have had an influence. You mentioned Joe Burgess, so let's skip ahead a few squad numbers to him.
Yeah.
Someone who, of course, wasn't part of pre-season for much of it last year, came in late from the Salford Red Devils, but a player who proved his worth on a number of occasions. A bit shaky in defence at times, whether that was because he was playing on a wing he's maybe not necessarily accustomed to. But I think he's another one who's nailed down that starting wing spot.
I think he's got better defensively under Willie Peters, though. I think
he had to, didn't he? There were some games.
I think it was against Warrington, the game we won. He was outstanding, and they made a break. I think it was Williams, and he tackled him from about 4. And that was the moment where I thought he didn't used to do that. But yeah, I think that his aims for this year, obviously, he's got a long-term contract now. He's had a full pre-season. He seems to be one of the jokers of the group. Everyone seems to love him. Just carry on. I think he bagged 18 tries in about 24 games, didn't he, last year? So just carry on doing what you're doing. And for me, he's the number one winger.
Yeah, he hasn't been on Twitter for a while, has he, either, I don't think.
No, I'm surprised. Well, maybe he might have made a fool of himself. If he'd have gone in on Salford a few weeks back and then what's happened today has happened, he'd have probably got a few rattled replies.
Rattled, yeah. Let's skip back then. So, 𝗵𝗂𝗀𝗃, number 3, Oliver 𝗲𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗏, number 4. You expecting them to be the 2 starting centres for that Castleford round 1 game?
I am. Big question mark for me this season's 𝗲𝗏𝗃.
Yeah.
𝗃𝗂𝗃. Don't really need to go into 𝗃𝗂𝗃, do we? He was outstanding last year. There's a reason why he was, running close to the Man of Steel awards, played for New Zealand. Hopefully he can carry on his form because, again, his legs are slowing down with aging and he's got another year to prove himself. He will do that. I think he's a top pro. And in that centre, you mentioned 𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗏. I think he glides as well. And it'll be interesting to see him again in the centre, obviously with a full pre-season playing there. 𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗏, I love him. You know what I mean? I'm not slagging the kid off, but just again, another injury hit season and then coming back. I think it was Saints at home, and then he ended up pulling up in the warm-up. Broadbent came in for debut and did outstanding, but missing the grand final. I'm not saying he'd have won the grand final for us, but someone who's been there and done that, to have him only playing about 14, 15 games last season, and he has done for a few years and he struggled with injuries. I just hope he can have a season like 𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗏s did last year and get over that injury rut that he's been in, unfortunately, because on his day, cracking player. Some of the stuff he did, that little flick to Ryan Hall against Warrington at home in the early rounds, some of his defensive efforts, tearing FC to shreds and stuff in the derby. He can do it. It's just how long can he keep it up for? But Broadbent I like as well, and I'm sure we'll go on to him. So we have got adequate replacements there with the likes of Louis Gorman and that as well. But for me, yeah, 𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 and 𝗃𝗂𝗃 start if both fit. Yeah,
I think 𝗃𝗂𝗃 will be absolutely flying, especially after appearing for New Zealand in the Pacific Championships. And the only concern I have around 𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 is the head injuries that he's encountered last season, whether that plays a part this year. But fingers crossed it doesn't, because he's a real Rolls Royce of a player and someone who definitely adds value to the Robins side. I mean, Mikey Lewis, the unretired Roger Millward's number 6 shirt, was you a fan of that?
I don't mind it. My dad won't. I'm from the younger generation, aren't I? So I think, do you know what? If he's willing to go up, everything he's done and everything he's said since his debut against Wigan in 2019 is kind of delivered, hasn't he, barring that trophy? So I just say, if that kid wants to go to Neil Hudgell and say, I want that 6 shirt and I want to be Roger's legacy and the next generation for that number 6, there's big pressure on you, but you go and do it. You know what I mean? For me, I think that's his big aim now. He's got a long-term contract. There's not been that daft talk during pre-season. So for him now, go try and get another England call-up, lead this team around the park, go even better than you did last year, which was hard to do because he was outstanding. Wear that number 6 and take that pressure on, but, thrive and prove why you've come out of retirement to wear that 6 and that 6 come out of retirement. So yeah, it's big pressure, but if someone can handle it, it's him. And he seems to be getting better every year, still so young, got the world at his feet, and he's hated by a lot of people for a reason, because they'd love him in his club. And it's great that we get him again for another season and hopefully for many more.
Yeah, he underwent surgery, didn't he, just before pre-season, I think, for a little injury. So hopefully that's all sorted. And if anyone has seen pictures, I mean, you can't read too much into it, of course you can't, because a lot of these players look absolutely great in the buff, don't they, Joe? But I mean, Mikey Lewis really looks like he's bulked up. He looks like an absolute muscle man for someone who's so small and diminutive. But he's still got that pace, that turn of speed, that ability, and obviously, I think part of that bulking up is for his defence as well, his defensive efforts. Because
well, that was his weakness, wasn't it? Even under Tony, Tony Smith used to say it, didn't he? Never mind Willie. So yeah, he is bulking up, and he's not coming into his prime. Absolutely not at all, and that's the frightening bit. So let's just see where it goes. He's got another year with 𝗕𝗂𝗍𝗲. They worked very well in spells last season, and there was some games where it didn't work, but our pack got us over the line, which is natural. That happens with every club. So yeah, looking forward to it. I kind of like that the 6 is back, just because I'm quite a traditionalist. I like my halfbacks to wear 6 and 7. I hated it when Danny Maguire had to wear the 7 for Rovers, because he was the number 6, wasn't he, in a nutshell. So yeah, glad it's back. Great that we can remember Roger as well, and hopefully, every time he pulls that jersey on, he does the family proud, which, it was a great video, wasn't it, with Carol and stuff, and she seems to be really fond of it as well and wanted the move, and the whole family did. So who are we to say why it shouldn't have done? Yeah,
I've got every faith that he'll do it justice. 𝗕𝗂𝗍𝗲, he was the last player back from pre-season. If you believe the rumours, he was never coming back. A good example of why you don't necessarily always believe the rumours, especially when they're coming from certain people. But 𝗕𝗂𝗍𝗲, not necessarily someone who a lot of supporters have been a fan of. Would you say that's fair to say? I think he's been a little bit indifferent in terms of his performances, but he's a player I think fits perfectly into the side. And I do think, though, he needs a big season. And obviously, don't forget as well, he's out of contracts at the end of 2025 as well.
He's an enigma. I cannot put my finger on what I think of him. There is games where I come out of the Craven Park or ever and go, what is he doing? The next week I go, yeah, that's why he's here.
Yeah.
He has it, but he doesn't. I don't know. I think he don't work properly with Mikey. I do, because they've got him to a grand final. But I just think, for example, when we was linked with Sneyd, I was thinking if we had just a dictator in that middle for Mikey. But then 𝗕𝗂𝗍𝗲 has also been a brilliant centre over the years. So I was hoping we could have got someone like that and he could have gone in the centre. But we didn't, and we deal what we deal with. He's a brilliant player. Defensively, he's outstanding. I can't put anything wrong with him. It's just sometimes in the bigger games, it's when he goes missing or he does something stupid. For example, that game at Wigan away, which when we was on their line, we'd score, I think it was 18-6 up. We looked like we could have just repeated, gone for a drop goal, grubbed it through. He decided to kick it daft. They caught it, went the full length of the field and ended up battering us for the last 20 minutes, which cost us the league leader shield, really, didn't it? So, and it's not, the blame's not just on him there. There is games where he has turned it on its head and he has ripped defences apart. But sometimes, and I think it doesn't help the way he acts with his persona. I don't mind it now, but at first, when he was warming up and it looked like he was just having a little chilled walk on East Park and then he won't do something, that's when people get angry in it, because well, he's obviously not taking it serious. I think he's better in the summer, but there's no denying he's a quality player. I just think he's inconsistent. He's either amazing or you wouldn't know he was on the pitch. But when he's on there, and even when he's struggling in attack, you can't knock his defence. And I think that's what helps us a lot, especially when teams are playing that shift play out wide, because we know even as a halfback, sometimes Mikey can get caught up in defence, whereas 𝗕𝗂𝗍𝗲 throws his body on the line, and I'll never knock his commitment. I just think sometimes in attack, he makes the wrong calls.
Yeah, Willie Peters has said, hasn't he, that one of the areas of 𝗕𝗂𝗍𝗲's game that he needs to improve upon is his kicking. Not just obviously for 𝗕𝗂𝗍𝗲, but for the benefit of the team. Whether that's the quality of the kicking or the amount of kicks he does make, we'll see during the course of the season. But it's an area of his game that can be great, and like you said, it can be chalk and cheese, like that kick against Wigan. But then we see so many kicks that he does put in, which put the opposition under so much pressure. Yeah. I think it's adding that consistency around his kicking game, which I think will be key for us this season.
Yeah, I think it's, to move, obviously we'll move on because we've got a lot of players to talk about. But again, it's just that selection. He's brilliant on his day, and he did absolutely wonders last season. If he can be consistent, then that's when you're talking of what an unbelievable halfback partnership it is. So yeah, really, I like the kid. You know what I mean? He's weird and wonderful. And if anyone follows him on Instagram, he's a bit of a strange bloke. But he does it on the pitch, doesn't he? And again, he's one of them where I think he's grown into what Rovers are. When he first came, you kind of thought, is he not that bothered? Whereas you see him on Instagram, don't you, with everyone, and responding to stuff on socials. He seems to have really bought into it. So hopefully a better season, a more consistent season.
Yeah, well, if anyone follows any of the May brothers on Instagram, they'll know that they're a unique set of brothers, unique siblings, aren't they, in terms of some of the stuff they get up to.
Yeah.
It's
like you've took an acid pill if you look at their stories on a night sometimes.
We're moving into the forwards, Joe. Number 8, squad number, 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏 𝗬𝗂𝗃. Someone who I think really came into his own last season. Someone who's really bought into what 𝗬𝗂𝗏𝗏 wanted him to be like. I think he looks like a different player from when we signed from the NRL. And another one who's fit and playing.
I thought it was you, that photo they put on in Tenerife. He is, no, honestly, when we talk about aims, if he starts this season well, and obviously you'll probably talk about that in the season preview next week, obviously with the quota issues as well, because as it stands, Rhys Martin and 𝗃𝗃𝗃 won't be on the quota next season anyhow, even if there was in red and white. 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗃 is someone who definitely needs to be signed up for a year at least, like they've done with Dean Hadley in the off-season, if he continues his form. You know, I think he won me and my mates at least a few grand scoring them first tries. He loves a crash ball, doesn't he? And for me, I think he starts prop. Definitely, there's a few options into this season with the people who we're going to speak about in a minute. But yeah, he looks fitter than he did in the NRL. He's leaner. And you know what? He's added a bit of pace to him as well. He's not slow for a big middle. And teams fear him. There are times that's last season where you knew every time him and Whitbread were taking a carry, we was making 10, 15 metres and giving an offload away. It was like inevitable. I'm just hoping, because obviously sometimes after an off-season you can get caught up and not continue that form. He can hit the ground running again because he was absolutely fantastic last season. Don't think he pulled up trees in 23, but you give people time to settle, don't you? And last season, he was up there with one of my players of the year. So yeah, if you was looking at retentions and he can continue it, if it's round 3, 4 and he's already ripping up trees and hopefully can stay injury-free, there'd be no issues and qualms from me if they give him a year.
Okay, we'll go to the squad number 9, which is, of course, Jez Litton. For me, a bit of an indifferent season. Lots of good moments, some not good moments. Just a little bit on what you're willing him to do more, just willing him to get back involved in the game a bit more. I don't think he's necessarily always turned it on as much as Willie Peters needed him to do. But, of course, when you've got someone like Matty Parcell playing, who's challenging you for that starting hooker position, you're always going to be under threat. But I'm expecting a big 2025 from him.
Yeah, I am, and I try and have not a blinkered opinion with Jez because he's one of my mates and stuff. So I always find it tough to talk about him in a Rovers context. But he admits it. You know, obviously at the beginning of the show we mentioned my granddad when he'd come to see him in, I think it was just before the England Test series, and obviously he wanted the side. We spoke, and it was kind of like, it was obviously upset about how it had gone and things like that. But he also had brilliant moments. That try away against Leeds when he came on, I don't think it helps. Parcell was a great player again last year, whereas now I'm kind of thinking it is his time. I know he's had the 9 shirt, but realistically he probably hasn't been the 9 still. It has been Parcell, whereas that's gone now. He's had 5, 6 seasons with them two. Parcell's gone. Jez is going to be here probably for a long time still. Really interested, and I think it's going to work with Mickey Mack. I think it's a good partnership. I don't know how it's going to work. I can either see Jez starting, Mickey Mack coming on for 20 minutes and then Jez coming back on, or starting with 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗃 for 30 and then Jez comes on once 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗃's busted him up down the middle because he's another forward, isn't he? But yeah, not the best seasons for him. He had moments of brilliance with the boot. I think he played really well in certain games. I think Leeds away, even though he only played 15 minutes, ended up making over 100 metres and 20 tackles. So his work rate and everything, you can't falter. Just again, sometimes it's probably been tough coming on so late in games, trying to create a spark when Rovers were 26-6 up against Huddersfield. You're kind of coming on for nothing, aren't you, really? So I'm hoping now he can kind of kick on and form another partnership. It's obviously not going to be as long as the Parcell-Litton partnership here lasted, but him and 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗃 now, I do think they can complement each other. I'm trying to look at that and think, you know what, I can see why he's done it.
Yeah, well, let's stick on 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗃 because you've mentioned him, and of course he's vying with Jez Litton for that starting hooking role. Was he a signing that surprised you? I mean, he's coming to us at 36 years old, a long career in rugby league, but by all accounts, one of the fittest and hardest trainers in rugby league. Is,
to put it politely, he's a bit of a bastard, isn't he? Which I think we want. You know, we need that in the middle. We're going to talk about the ultimate one soon, but I think for Mickey Mack, the experience, he's got Challenge Cup winner, played in World Cups for England and Ireland, Grand Final winner, played in a Wigan team who bullied teams, Catalan Pack that bullied teams. He will come in and not take any nonsense. And I think our pack is going to be great next season, and he's going to be a very good addition. If we get a year out of him, if we get 2, I think he'll add a lot. I don't think he's going to be playing massive minutes, and sometimes his contributions will probably be more defensively than in attack. But what he can do is, like I just mentioned, start as 9, play as another middle, a bit like what Brandon Smith does in the NRL for Melbourne Storm and the Roosters. Obviously, he's had them 2 clubs where he's played as that like middle 9. Just get at the markers, get at A and B defender, tire them out, get in people's faces, get them riled up, and then you've probably got people like 𝗕𝗂𝗄𝗏 and 𝗂𝗽𝗲𝗄𝗏 and Jared to come on or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Well, I think he can be a great addition, and I think he'll also take a bit of sting out of the pack as well, and the energy that we use early in games, because he can do so much work.
Yeah, and I think regardless of what your opinion of him, of what he does on the pitch, I think he's a good example of how certain players are signed, not necessarily what they do on the pitch only, but how they are away from it, how they are around the camp, how they are interacting with the other players, how they drag people along with them, how they can be somebody that other people in the team can look towards and go, if he's doing it, I need to do it. And I think he's a wholesome player, as daft as that, someone who's bringing more than just what he can do out on the pitch. And I think when you listen to Danny Ward in particular, when they talked about the Tenerife camp and how well that went, well, first and foremost, we've just got good blokes here. That's why it's enjoyable.
Well, that's the thing as well, innit? It's all about that culture. And I know it's a bit cringy sometimes to hear about the 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗏 way and everything's done on culture, but they've done really well under Willie Peters for a reason. It's because he's brought good people in. I just think from a hooker perspective, you've got like young Lenny Ellis, Bill Leyland, who them 2 are looking up to Jez Litton, who has come through the ranks at obviously Hull, but just signed at Rovers very young. Now he's turned into an England international with over 100 Rovers games under his belt in 6 seasons. And then above that, you've got them 3 looking at Mickey Mack and thinking he's 36, 37 nearly, still doing it at the highest level, won absolutely everything in the game, and still as fit and tough as most probably 23-year-olds in the squad. So yeah, looking forward to it. Obviously, there's always been a bit of a discipline issue, but I also think we can manage that. We are very good disciplinary wise, and I know we're going to be talking about Mickey Mack and JWH, who everybody thinks are only going to play 1 game this season because they'll be sent off all the time. I actually think they'll be all right, because Willie, again, is methodical. He will be banging the drum saying you've got to be smart, and that's why last season the strength and con worked a dream, because we didn't get many injuries and we didn't get many red or yellow cards, did we? I can't remember a red card. I can remember a few yellows, like Bear just pulling back.
Yeah, I don't think we had 1 red.
No, I don't. I think it was the only team not to. So do you know what I mean? And I know we're bringing in 2 people who are notoriously known for having a bit of a tear up sometimes. But again, you can flip that and think it's a good thing, because it adds that bit more to us that maybe we've been lacking when you go to a Wigan away and you need to seal the deal, or you're in a grand final, it's chucking down and you need to break them down the middle and you just can't.
Yeah, and let's move on to number 10, JWH. I mean, wow, just what a physical specimen. Another one, but not just that. What a great bloke he's supposed to be. Someone who's come over here on a 1-year contract, but he's brought his family with him. You know, he's not coming over here for a holiday. He's coming over here to potentially earn himself another contract. He's fully invested in what we're trying to do here at Hull Kingston Rovers. And he's somebody who, you know, like you said, people think he's not going to play because he's going to be suspended. Hang on. He doesn't have such a long career in the NRL if he ain't playing. He's out on the pitch and he's playing. He's an enforcer. And you've got to trust him to be able to adapt to the game over here. And let's be honest, the game ain't that different. I understand what people say about, you know, how sometimes interpretation and the tackle, you know, the tackle technique's got to change because of the RFL and what they've tried to implement. But first and foremost, you know, he ain't daft and he will adapt and he will take time. And apparently, I mean, someone's put on YouTube now, I've been told that sometimes JWH has to be stopped from doing things in the gym and the wrestling room just because of how big and physical he is. Who knows? But he's going to be a great addition to the side this year.
I'll probably put this on record. In 27 years of supporting this club, I have never been so excited for a signing. I just think he is everything that I love about rugby league, an old-fashioned prop who smashes you, will die for that badge, and then shake the bloke's hand who is bent in half for 80 minutes after it. He is, by all accounts, and I've heard things, obviously, and, you know, there's obviously circles and contacts I still have. Apparently, mate, he is just unbelievable, both on and off the pitch. He is not taking any rubbish in training. The standards have got to be there. He's not here for a holiday.
Yeah,
he knows he's here to take this club to the next level. I think he will be unbelievable. And yeah, I don't know how I think they'll start him. I personally think they'll start him and Jessie Sue. But there's also an argument to say you could play him off the bench and bring him on. But I just think in them first minutes of it's, I'm so excited to see him like take back line carries, that first derby, that first game at Wigan, first game at Craven Park, him taking a carry. And it's not just his name and what he's done in the game, it is his stature in it. And you can see what that the video Rovers did when he got to the ground, the way he shakes everyone's hand. And I know it's on camera and sometimes that you can be perceived by people, can't you? But apparently, just by all accounts, is a gent as well as an absolute ad, you know what, on the pitch. Yeah,
I think what you see is what you get, and that's on and off the pitch. So it's very genuine. Number 11, Dean Hadley, fresh from signing a new contract. I suppose a little bit of a question mark about where exactly his strength is. He can play a number of positions. Sometimes that's a weakness, isn't it? Because then you don't actually nail down a position. Do you see him as a starter or on the starting from the bench this season?
Well, this is tough because now you talk about it, and I've done it at 17 about a million times. I can see Dean Hadley starting prop because I honestly think if we look at the back row, you've got Batchelor and Rhys Martin who can play 80 minutes. I don't see, is he going to spell Minchella more and play Dean Hadley as a 13 and prop? He's got so many options and it's brilliant. I'd not want to be in his shoes because whatever he does and whatever 17 he plays, for me, Dean Hadley has got to be in it one way or the other. Yeah. But I don't see how you can play him on the bench because he's such an engine. And he is, again, like a 𝗂𝗂𝗏. When you're in the trenches at a Lancashire team away on a Friday night in the rain, he's the bloke taking 2 carries a set when everyone's knackered. So he's such an asset to this club. And there's a reason why he keeps getting contract after contract when everyone said he was an has-been when Wakey and Hull didn't want him. And we picked him up on a free with Jez, didn't he? And what a player he's turned out to be. But then I'm like, he can't not start Jessie Sue. He can't start Jared. It's great, isn't it? This is why it's so interesting to see what he's going to do. He's in my 17. I don't know what Willie Peters is going to do, though.
Yeah, Batchelor at number 12. He's nailed on for that second row spot, isn't he? I mean, he's another one who just brings a level of consistency that you can rely on. I'd like to see him score a few more tries. I think that was one area that he could improve upon from last season. But you know, some of the lines he runs, and you know, let's be honest, his defensive work, the amount of tackles he gets through, he's a player that Willie Peters will love, no doubt.
Again, someone who signed a long-term contract as well. There's been a few, haven't they? Minchella, him, Hadley. Obviously, he's just signed 1 year, so there has been a lot of contract retention as well. Yeah, a great player, an absolute steal from Wakefield. We've had a few of them, haven't we, over the years, but he probably tops the bunch for me just because of his work rate. He starts, Rhys Martin starts, and obviously Minchella's the 13. That's my back, you know, the back rowers and the loose forward. It's hard to argue otherwise. But again, if Batchelor's having an off game, if Rhys Martin has a little niggle or something like that, you have now got the beauty where you have got a Dean Hadley who can just slot in there and not have to worry about thinking, oh God, who we're going to have to put in there now. The back row's stacked and you've still got like AJ Wallace, Leon Roon, a few other young kids. We've got depth there. I don't think they're near that team, by the way, but I'm just saying we've got a lot of depth in the back row, which we haven't for quite a while. And it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. But yeah, for me, Batchelor, Martin and Minchella, they're nailed on.
Yeah, and Elliot Minchella, I think sometimes the captaincy can be deemed as a bit of a burden to players and some people. For me, Elliot Minchella, the captaincy is pushing to the next level. I think he was ready for that responsibility, and I think he was ready for someone like Willie Peters to trust him. And there's no doubt he's obviously got the trust of the players. It was interesting, JWH, the challenge for Minchella captaining somebody like that. But obviously, you know, captaincy is different now, isn't it? In terms of the captaincy's shared in a leadership group. Yes, there is one captain, but senior players or or players who show great leadership skills are grouped together and they do it for the benefit of the team as well. So, yeah, for me, what he does on the pitch, absolutely fantastic, but he brings so much off it as well in terms of his leadership.
You can tell as well, you get players all the time, don't you, saying, I love this club or any club in Super League. You can genuinely see it in his interview and his voice when he talks about Rovers. We give him a chance with the likes of Rowan Milnes, Ethan Ryan, but the Anisu Madotti, when we signed all them lot in 2020. He has turned out to be an absolute gem, and he's probably the closest thing a Bradford bloke will get to being East Hull, and he absolutely loves it. He's got a massive deal now, the captain for years to come, and yeah, he just keeps on getting better and better. But on the leadership group, I don't think he's alone. You've got JWH in there, you've got a Jesse Sue who's played over 150 games in the NRL, a James Batchelor who's coming up the ranks now, Hiku in international. We've got a lot of them. Minchella is just the bloke who says the final words and wears the armband with pride. But for me, everyone was saying give JWH the captaincy. No, he did nothing last year to not deserve that, Minchella. He was absolutely fantastic from round 1 to 27, and I think he'll be great again.
Yeah, and I think that decision to not do that garners a lot of respect from the players as well.
Yeah, of course it does. And to give him another, was it 3-4 years?
I think he's here till he's 50, isn't he? I think he's just here forever. That's it. He ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, but no, really looking forward to seeing him again, and I think he will flourish again with a Mickey Mack who can get an offload away. He worked really well with Parcell out that 9, didn't he, getting at first marker? But I think with mph and him in the span as well, it's a tough old team.
Yeah, let's we're going. Obviously, we're going through the squad numbers now. 15, 16. Let's group Sam Luckley and Jai Whitbread together. Sam Luckley, a player who's probably exceeded many Robins' expectations in terms of actually how many games he's played, and I tell you what, he's been full value for it. Jai Whitbread, of course, signed from Wakefield after their relegation. Another player who's probably stepped up more than what people would expect, and it's going to be interesting to see where Willie Peters does go with them rotations in terms of the props, isn't it? Because Sam Luckley and Jai Whitbread are two players who have performed admirably for the Robins.
I think if I was putting a bet on and everyone's fit for round 1, I don't think Sam Luckley plays. And that probably proves how much depth we've got when him and Jack Brown are probably your 18th and 19th man. Because for me, Whitbread's got to play. Tanganoa's got to be playing on the bench. And then you've got McAlorum or Jez who'll be on the bench. And then probably a Dean Adley or Sue or JWH, if we're thinking they're the 3 people who could start prop as well. Really tough. Of course, Sam Luckley could play, and if he does, I'm not going to be bothered because he's a great player. But it just shows that when we are fully fit, there is going to be, and he's got to manage this as well. There's a lot of good players who aren't going to be playing many minutes for a stints this year. So it's all about managing that. I always think it's really good having depth, but you can kind of look at from the other side and go, are people going to be a bit agitated? But under the Willie Peters way, you either get on with it, prove why you should be in the 17, and if you don't want to fight for your place, don't play for
that's it, you're done. I absolutely love
it. Which is brilliant, and I love it. And people go, we chop players all the time. So what? So we don't want average. We don't want people who are just here for happy not playing in the 17. We can all coast and pick up a decent wage and play 1-2 games a year. Willie don't want that, does he?
No, and it also shows what faith Paul Aiken, Neil Hudgell, Paul Sewell, the board, having Willie Peters to make these decisions as well. Because obviously there's a financial offset as well when you're releasing players or letting people go. They don't go for free.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, we won't name them all now because we don't want to bore people thinking of it, but I imagine there's 10 players that we've released early since he joined.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. So, right, moving on. So we've got number 17. We've been talking about leadership and all that kind of stuff. Well, PNG captain Rhys Martin, who apparently don't enjoy the drive down the M62, if reports are to be believed. Of course, that's complete and utter bollocks. As he did his interview with 𝗀𝗃𝗏, telling people how happy he is and how much he was enjoying being with the Robins, which we all knew, of course, didn't we? We all knew that. But
it was AI, that. He's back at Leeds. It was artificial video, that.
Yeah. Well, Rhys Martin, we know what he can do with a kicking boot. But he's more than that, isn't he? He's more than just a kicker. He's such a great player in the second row. He can also play centre.
You nailed it. I was just going to say it.
Yeah. But do you see him moving? Well, who knows? Because whatever we predict for this first round 1 team, I'll guarantee you by round 15, it will not be that.
No, not at all. I don't see him starting in the centre in round 1. But again, if we've spoke about Gildart and Broadbent earlier, haven't we? With them options, you've got him as well who can slot in there, and then Dean Hadley could go back row. But that's for another day, isn't it? We don't want that to happen yet. Yeah, for me, mate, he starts, he plays 80 minutes, he goal kicks. He's gone under the radar. A lot of people aren't talking about him. It's kind of people forgetting that we've signed. I listened to a few other podcasts recently, and people go, reading through the signings, and then they go, oh, bloody hell, yeah, Rhys Martin's at Rovers as well, isn't he? And again, taking us to the next level, I thought Mikey improved his goal kicking last year a lot, but you've probably got the best goal kicker, him and Mark Sneyd, isn't it? But he can add so much more. I'm just hoping he don't get the Craven Park curse and done like that wind behind the from the North Sea when he's kicking it into it. But yeah, he's great. And again, another leader, can play various positions, a lot of international pedigree, and he's going to bring a wealth of experience into and help them young lads. And yeah, seamlessly slots into the back row for me with Batch.
He's probably one of the players I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, same.
To see what he can do. There's going to be pressure on his shoulders every time he gets the kicking tee out. There's going to be pressure on his shoulders to deliver. But I'll tell you what, he's played under pressure situations before. He ain't no stranger to it. So I think he's gonna hopefully kick us to them victories where we maybe last season would have faltered. And he can be the difference in them crucial games. Hopefully, we're playing them crucial games, which I fully expect us to be doing. A player who came in during the course of the season from Castleford, number 18, Jack Broadbent, probably surprised quite a few, Joe, in terms of what he actually produced for the Robins, and he thoroughly deserved his opportunity, I think, to play as many games as he did for the Robins.
Yeah, I don't think when he signed, you'd be saying he'd be starting in the grand final. I like him. I think he's still very raw. To say he's been at Leeds, Cass, he's been around the block a bit. I like him. I think he's got to tidy certain aspects of his game up. I like the fact he's a utility. He can play on the wing, centre, fullback. He's played in the halves before, hasn't he? So I like that about him. He's still very young. And again, I think he's another one who's grateful for his chance. This time last year, he was playing for Cass, who ended up finishing 10th last season. And now Rovers have signed him a bit like Jack Brown, who we'll speak about soon. These players who have been bought from lesser clubs, they'll be rubbing their hands and thinking, I'm going to repay it now. I've been given the chance. I'm not turning this down. And I think that's a benefit for us because they both seem to be really impressing the two Jack B's in training. And you can kind of see again, they're looking a bit leaner, they're looking a bit fitter. And that's probably due to a bit of an improvement in training. I think he'll be knocking on the door. It would not surprise me if he started centre in round 1. I think it'll be Gildart, but you never know because he justified his place. And there was never a moment where, apart from him playing fullback against Warrington when he was a bit shaky, there wasn't a moment ever where I thought he's so out of his depth, where a lot of people thought he would be. I think he's a very good player with a lot more to bring. Yeah.
And number 19, Danny Richardson, without being disrespectful, all you can say is probably back up to Tyrone Main and Mikey Lewis. If Tyrone Main and Mikey Lewis are fit, you pretty much expect them 99% of the time to be playing. Danny Richardson, he's probably one of the most popular players in the camp, and that's vital for the Robins. But it's only going to be injuries, isn't it? Surely, or suspensions where we're going to then see him play if he does play.
Of course, and I think as well, I know we've been very, very positive so far before a ball's been kicked, but I don't think being realistic with a salary cap sport, you couldn't get many better third choice halfbacks for who've done it for St Helens really well at Cass at times. Obviously, injuries stunted him a little bit, but I think he's one of them as well that wants to play, knows his place, and won't kick up a fuss. He will help and play a massive part for the reserves. He will play games for this first team this year, but he doesn't strike me as a bloke who will cry when he doesn't get picked because he knows what's in front of him. And by all accounts, again, a great player in the changing rooms, a bit of a joker as well, seems to be loving it at Rovers. And again, he'll want to stake a claim. I don't think he'll get many, but he seems to have a really good rapport with the lads, and Willie Peters seems to like him. And yeah, I think the last third halfback we brought in was probably a waste of time. We should have got him a little bit earlier.
Well, he's a waste of time, and I'm glad you hadn't even mentioned his name because it'd have been a waste of breath as well.
Yeah.
Number 20, 𝗂𝗡𝗂𝗏. So exciting, isn't he? That lines that he's running, that explosive power, the pace he's got. he's in a shootout, though, isn't he? For them second row spots. He's got a lot of competition, although you would say he is a different type of player to the other guys who could potentially play that position.
And that's what we've spoke about. Willie Peters is very good normally at his subs, especially in the middle. He can time them very well. And I think what he can do this year is when Rovers are maybe on the back foot or when Rovers are knocking on the door and can't get through, you have got him on the bench who can come over, do 10, 15 minutes. If he does 10, 15 minutes but goes and bags a try, breaks through and then gets another player injured or in the defence from knocking him over like he did a few times last year, he's done his job, But then on the other hand, he can play big minutes. He's got anything in his locker and again got through it unscathed, which he struggled at Wakefield. So he proved that myth wrong. For me, people do my head in when they go, he's number 20. It doesn't mean he's out of favour. He was number 20 last year. It means nothing squad numbers. He plays in this 17. And if he doesn't, I'll be annoyed.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Joe. Squad numbers don't mean anything unless you're 1 to 13.
Yeah, probably. I like the NRL style personally. I'd like to name the team on the Tuesday and name the 1 to 20. I like that.
Yeah. Let's group Jack Brown, number 21, and 𝗲𝘂𝗧𝗏, 24. Of course, Doro's so exciting in the championship for Bradford. Came away with all their trophies. Was he championship player of the year as well?
Yeah.
Jack Brown obviously swapped in for 𝘂𝗍𝗄𝗏 last season. We saw him when he first came and the shape he was in. And then we've seen the shape he's in now. And it's like a completely different player. So it's going to be interesting to see where them two fit in, isn't it? Because if we're honest, they're not the starting props. They're probably not on the interchange bench. But they will be pushing to get them places. So there will be times when they play. I think Jack Brown ended up playing probably a bit more than I expect him to do. And you know what? I don't think Jack Brown let us down either, really. I thought he was steady. You want explosive and he want maybe, but he did when he the minutes he played was at key spells for when Willie Peters brought him on in terms of the middle of the game. And I think it's going to be really good to see how he develops under Willie Peters. And 𝗲𝘂𝗧𝗏, I'd love to see him play, but I can't make a case for him to play at the moment.
No, I think to kind of cut it short for them two, because we've got to go through some more people. Doro, for me, I'd love to see him go back out on loan, maybe back to Bradford, but also playing reserves. Priority him playing for Rovers reserves, and then he can go to Bradford when we haven't got a game. He's exciting. I saw him play against Donny last year, and he absolutely bulldozed 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏, 𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗏𝗃, obviously old stalwarts in that Donny side, but still very good players in their own right. Brownie, looks very lean. Speaking to his cousin the other day, said he's loving it. Best pre-season he's ever had, and I think he can see. He came into this Rovers team after playing twice for Hull against Rovers last season, being dicked in a team that was struggling, a team that was crap, and a team that didn't have a good pre-season, to a Rovers side who was top of the league at the time, who needed him to come in and do a job. And you know what? Even though he probably wasn't where he was at fitness levels, his offload game, winning penalties, getting a quick ruck. Now he's had a full pre-season under Willie and he looks stronger, he looks leaner. I'm really excited. Again, I don't think he plays every single game, probably doesn't start for a long, long time, but when he gets his chance, he'll be ready because he's at his boyhood club again. The team is supported as a lad and he'll be absolutely buzzing that he's got a long-term deal and gets to play in the red and white in front of his family, who are obviously massive Robins as well.
Yeah, no doubt his best pre-season, probably his only first proper pre-season.
Honestly, and that's take rivalry aside. I know we love having a joke about it, don't we? But we know them pre-seasons under obviously Rovers' his old coach and Hull's old coach were nowhere near what they are under Willie's.
Yeah, number 22, 𝗵𝐿𝐶 is an interesting one, isn't he? He went out to Oldham last season, did extremely well for Oldham. They've obviously then been promoted. He's going back to them for another year. I think he's had a bit of a carrot dangled in terms of literally you need to perform at Oldham if you want to stay at Hull Kingston Rovers, as that sounds. Do you see a future for him with the Robins?
Yeah, I do. I didn't last season.
Yeah.
I mean, all I'm thinking is now, if Oldham, obviously, they're pissed that league, and let's be honest, they had a very good team in League One for League One. It's going to be tougher. He struggled a bit in the Championship when he was on loan last time. I think he went to Dewsbury or someone like that, didn't he? Whereas now he's got a full season playing in a team that is no mugs in the Championship. There's some good players. Matty Ashurst, people like that have gone there, haven't they? So they want to be a top Championship team. If he can do it there, He's also got the carrot dangling that 𝗪𝗔𝗔𝗲's off contract, and it could be him and 𝗪𝗔𝗔𝗲 fighting for that one share. I can and I can't see it. I like him playing. I've seen him in the halves. I've seen him at hooker. He's a different type of player in them positions, but there's something there. I don't know if it'll be enough to ever break into a top Super League team or even at Rovers, but I can see him doing something in the game. I just need to see a little bit more of him, and I'm glad that he's in the Championship, because I'd have been a bit annoyed if he'd have gone to like a Goal or something like that, because I think now he's at that stage, similar to Leo Tennyson, similar to Conor Barley, Zach Fishwick, them lads. I want to see him playing for the reserves, but I bang on every year. I want to see him playing Championship. It's the best thing for him.
Yeah, and I know, I've been guilty of it in the past, and there's lots of Robins out there who'll say about his size, but I think you only have to look at @𝗲𝗂𝗧 to know that he can still have a decent career without being 6 foot. So the potential's there for him, isn't it? I think like I said, the carrot's been dangled to him to go to Oldham, dominate that team in the Championship, and then let's have that conversation come the end of the season.
You can mould him. Sorry, we'll move on in a minute. I know we're blagging on, but you can mould PLT. He's a fullback at the moment. That could change, and that's what excites me, and that's why I think he's been given a little bit longer contract, because we know it could be there. We just need to see it a bit more.
Yeah, number 23, Lee Kershaw. Let's group him with number 25, Bill Leyland, of course.
Yeah,
two former London players. Kershaw probably a little bit left field. I don't think many people that have predicted him coming in on the back of obviously Davis signing as well. What amazes me is how young he actually is, because he's not. He don't. When you see some pictures of him, I think he looks a lot older than what he actually is. But someone who's probably knows his place in the squad, probably feels fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to come to Hull Kingston Rovers and play under 𝗲𝗲𝗧 and play with some of the players that we've got. No doubt he will know who's in front of him, but he will be knocking on that door. And the best way for him to do that is training hard, playing well in the reserves, and if he gets a loan opportunity. I don't think he's a player who would go out on loan.
No.
I do. I think he's a player who will stay with us.
A bit like Danny Richardson. They know the place. They're a very good fair choice.
Yeah.
If you're breaking it down for me, Lee Kershaw, I think, was brought in because obviously you've had Davis and Burgess, Ryan Hall's gone. I don't think maybe you haven't got many other wingers. Obviously, you've got 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗃 and Harvey Horn, who have no Super League games and are very, very young. All it takes is one of them two to get injured, and you're already thinking, right, Broadbent's going to have to go on the wing out of position maybe, whereas Kershaw is an out-and-out winger. Prone to a bit of a daft mistake sometimes, but again, now he's in a better club, maybe that might fathom out. But what I do like about him is he's not the biggest kid. His backline carries are very good. He did a lot of work last season for that London team who had a very bang average pack and got bullied every single game, barring the times they beat Hull. But what he did was he carried strong and he played very much like Ryan Hall did. Obviously not to them meters-wise and stats, he won't nowhere near him, but he has got that in him as well, and he's rapid.
Yeah, Bill Leyland, comes to us on the back of a really serious injury, but one of the hottest prospects in terms of his position. Someone who's obviously going to be able to learn off Jez Litton and Mickey McAlorum, going to benefit from full-time professional rugby league. Probably one not for now, but potentially the future. Although some people look at Rhys Butterworth and think, well, he was supposed to be the next best thing, and look where that's turned out. I guess it's one of them where sort of suck it and see, because you can plot a pathway for him, but there's still a long way for him to get there.
100%. We don't know much about him. He was touted by a lot of good clubs last season before his ACL. Was really exciting in the Championship, came up to Super League, and everyone was going to rave about him, saying, let's see what this lad can do at Narn. Does his ACL in pre-season. So he's had a horrible year, probably counting his blessings and thinking, where's this luck come from? That Rovers have come in for him. 𝗲𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃 obviously sees something. And again, a bit like Rhys Butterworth, could not work out, but he's not on loads of money. He's not on a massive deal. Could be the best thing that's ever happened to Rovers. It could be one of them where we go, just didn't work out. There's no point judging what he's going to do, because first and foremost, he's coming off an ACL. He needs to play minutes for the Resis and maybe go out on loan, because that's his next step. He's not going to be ready for Super League for a while.
Yeah, number 26, Ajani Wallace.
Yeah, strange, mate, innit? One of them who I don't, prove me wrong, one of them who I can see going at the end of the year is out of contract. Can't make a play away for him in the team. Again, saw him at Donny last year. He was on loan there. Good player at that level. I don't know if he'll make it at Super League.
Yeah, it's hard to see a future for him, especially in terms of the first grade rugby at Hull Kingston Rovers. Leon Ruin, I mean, you just mentioned about salary cap and being a squad game. You'd look at Leon Ruin as someone who's probably got a lot of raw potential. Willie Peters, Danny Ward have probably seen something in him that they think they can mould, grow, develop, and ultimately he won't be on big bucks. If it doesn't work out, it's not a massive hit for the Robins.
Of course it doesn't. If it works out, people like me who think it's not going to work out, it's proved wrong. And I want that, you know what I mean? But we'll see. Again, Willie Peters and Danny Ward and Sean Kenny-Dowell and the coaching staff and everyone involved in the club have all come to an agreement that he is worth paying money for. So let's just wait and see, because the majority of the signings have worked out, haven't they? There's a few that obviously don't, but you take the rough with the smooth and the majority do. So yeah, them two again, Wallace and Roon. Can't really see much this year from him, but go out on loan, play some minutes, and prove why you should be in the team.
Yeah, we're going to group the last 7 players all together. We've got Zach Fishwick, Louis Gorman, Leo Tennyson, Connor Barley, Lenny Ellis, Harvey Horn, Neil Tushomabe, all pretty much in the similar kind of position, all vying to get make a name for themselves in the reserves or out on loan. Realistically, that is their opportunity to make a name for themselves, other than how they train amongst the first team and how they carry themselves and stuff. But they need minutes somewhere, because unfortunately, if you look at the pathway to the first team, there's a big door at the moment, and it looks pretty much closed, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does. And that's what frustrates me. The only thing about rugby league, if this was football and we was a Premier League club, if we're the equivalent of Super League, every single one of them players, a few of them would be going to the Vanarama North, because that's where they're at. You'd have a few going to League One, few going to League Two, and maybe the odd one who was nearly there who could go to a bottom championship team, because you've got more teams to choose from. Whereas in rugby, the Resi League's not anywhere near what it should be. If it was like Australia's and we had a Yorkshire and Lancashire Cup like they do in Queensland and New South Wales, it'd be perfect. They'd be playing every week in a good standard, and they'd be ready to make that step up. For people like Leo and Zach especially, who are middles and need minutes playing against blokes, they're going from a reserve match at the beginning of the month to then going to Featherstone and playing 15 minutes. And this isn't Rovers' fault. This is the way rugby league is at the moment, and every other club will say this about their young kids. They just need minutes, and there's nothing there for them at the moment. And I just pray to God that we don't see reserve games cancelled and people going on loan and then agreements not happening, or playing for Featherstone for 5 minutes against Workington or whatever. Go to a club that suits their needs, that can give them minutes, put them on the market. And if one of them ends up going to Batley, one of them ends up going to Dewsbury, one goes to Donny, it don't matter. Just get them minutes, because that's how you develop in rugby.
Yeah, and I think there was a moment last season where it was on the back of Louis Gorman signing a fresh free contract. We then played London away. James Batchelor played in the centres. And for me, like, come on, could that have been the game? But that shows me the ruthless nature of Willie Peters in terms of the priority for him in terms of the first team squad, which is, you can't question that, because that's his bread and butter. I did think that was maybe the one time we could have played him, or played a younger player in that position. But hey, look, I had question Willie Peters on what he's doing, because he's got pretty much everything right so far. Let's see where these players. I genuinely hope they get game time somewhere, and they get regular game time, whether that be first team in the championship, whether that be reserves. We hope the reserve grade competition pans out like it should do, and we don't see games binned off left, right, and centre, because ultimately no one benefits from that. So look, let's see where that goes. Right, that takes us, Joe, to question time. We've got loads. Question time, regular feature on the Robin Pod. It's back for 2025. We're going to do this in quick fire style. All right? Some of these will have already answered, so we don't have to necessarily spend much time on them. What does success look like for Saturday's Amsterdam Challenge in terms of team performance and the commercial side of it? What do you think the objectives of this event are? That's from Connor Allison. I think we pretty much spoke about that, didn't we, at the start?
Grow the game in Amsterdam and Holland. Young lads get minutes. Few first teamers get some minutes. Everyone have a good piss up in Amsterdam, the Robins, and have a great time.
Yeah, don't fall in any canals.
No.
Tom HKR over on X. Any concern that some of the squad have had little as 6 to 7 weeks pre-season by round one, as opposed to only 3 months last year? Do you think it should be a rule Cass have to kick to JWH for the first round hit up in round one? I think that's pretty much a give if he's starting. But he's, I suppose, a little bit different, Jono, in terms of the pre-season. It has been shorter this year, but I think that's because most of the players had a great pre-season the year before. And I think that's part of the build. One of your terms, Joe, that you haven't even mentioned yet, is building blocks. Then building blocks so are literally continuity in terms of players. And,
Yeah.
I think, Tyrone May coming back 1st of January, he has got catch-up. But I think the players hadn't spent, a few weeks when they had pre-season and after the back end of last season doing now, there was already fit come the back end. And yeah, I don't think it's concerned, do you?
Nah, mate, we got to a Challenge Cup semi, a grand final. Loads of the players played internationals. You had people who had played 30 games last season, all high intensity. Yeah, they've had a shorter pre-season. If you'd see what they do in Tenerife and what they do in pre-season, it's not short. These are professional players. The fit anyhow will be sound.
Yeah, and Danny Ward did mention about actually the good thing about having a number of players and not having a huge squad turnover is actually a lot of the partnerships are already there.
Yeah, so you don't have to do that familiar because the first few weeks are getting to know people, and obviously we've signed a lot of players who have come in know people anyhow. Yeah,
Carl Handy asks who out of the new signings he thinks surprises the most.
Oh, surprise! Mickey Mac. I think people are thinking that is done. Well, whereas everyone's expecting big things from Jared and everybody else like that, I'm going to say Mickey Mac.
Matt Gregson, he says, can we? No. Will we get the silverware monkey off our backs this season? Since 1985, don't forget. And are we really better equipped to do so? 2 questions. My opinion, we are better equipped.
Yeah. And we've got to win some. I'm fed up of saying it now, and I'm putting it out there. If we don't with this team in this era, then there's pressure and it hasn't worked. It's all right us being at the top and getting to these finals to go a little bit negative and on a rant now. We've got to get over the line. There is no reason in this Super League era with the teams and the clubs that we're playing against, with what we're spending, the players, the culture we've got. We've just got to get over the line, and this has got to be the year. And I'm over the grand final now. I'm trying my hardest not to remember it. We didn't even look like having a sniff in that game, which annoys me. The Challenge Cup final the year before, we've got to fuel it. We've got to go and get it. Whatever it is, I'm tipping us to win the Challenge Cup. I know we'll do the predictions in a few weeks whenever you do it, but to say it now, we've got to win that at least, because if we don't, it's a failure with this team personally, and there'll be questions asked, especially.
Yeah, Stephen over on X, he asked about younger lads breaking through. I think we discussed that when we talked about the players. Andrew Freeman, he's put 3 questions in, so I'll pick out one of them. Tough one, because it's which surprise player do you think will sign for next year? I mean, we're already talking about 2026. You've already mentioned Artem Org. It's hard to know, isn't it? Because what we do know with Robin is like to get the business done early. And I think one concern for me, Joe, is the average age of the squad. It needs to come down in 2026.
I'll throw 2 names out there, which there is no rumours in it. I'm just making up. I'm thinking Tyrone May, Mickey Mac won't be here next season, so we'll need a halfback and a hooker. Both from Oz. Brandon Smith, which I've mentioned earlier, the Cheese, and maybe Schneider, something like that. I don't know. We could say anyone. I've just made that up. Brandon Smith and Schneider.
Well, Callum Walker, he'll be on League Express now. He'll be typing that up.
Ex-OKR Jono reports new signings.
Yeah. Cam Bibbs, he asks, how do you balance the 17 with Bachelor, Martin, Hadley and Tanganoa, all presumably hoping to fill the back row positions? Dino was worth an additional interchange with his work last year, and Tanganoa wouldn't be as effective in the front row. I think we covered that a little bit. Literally, we don't know.
No, they all play in that 17, and like we said, Bachelor and Martin will probably be back row. But yeah, Tanganoa off the bench definitely, and Hadley either starting prop or on the bench.
Michael Matthews, which promising youngster, if any, will break through and play games this season? I'm struggling to see how any of the forwards will get game time at Rovers. I think we've answered that, haven't we? Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for them, but you know they will get a chance in training.
Yeah. I'll throw PLT in that. I know he's not a youngster who's come through the academy as such, but I'm saying he's going to have another good year at Oldham.
Yeah, God, Don Kirby, God, this is a big question. So, what do you think is the new disciplinary point system? Obviously, the RFL have introduced a new points-based system for discipline. I think what surprised me, Joe, what I don't like, is I'm carrying last season's discipline over to this season in terms of points. And there's a scenario, isn't there, where potentially Mickey McAloran could be banned for 2 games in the first game if he picks up a certain type of offence. But then points after so many games get wiped out and it goes back to 0. It's just...
You might as well punch someone 3 times back to back and then get your numbers wiped off.
Yeah,
They don't help themselves, do they? And I don't want to talk about them because they just ruin the game. They do my head in, and it puts the sport in a bad light. How can someone who did a high tackle against London last year, who aren't even in this league anymore, mean that if you do a minor offence round 1, you were going to be banned for 3 games because you've gone over a threshold? We're the only sport that makes everything so complicated. And you know what? It's pretty boring now, and there's a number of reasons why this sport isn't unbelievable in the eyes of everybody else, apart from us lot who do think it is unbelievable. But you look on what happens online and what the rules are made and all this daft stuff. There's no wonder it's a bit of a laughing stock because it's run by people who are inadequate, basically.
Yeah, 𝗲𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃 on Facebook. I mean, we spoke about this. Just one name from you, Joe. What new signing are you looking forward to seeing the most in 2025?
Oh, Jared, 100%.
And he said bonus points if you don't mention 𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃 or Mikey Lewis.
Leon Room.
Yeah, that'd be.
No, I'm joking. All right, if I was saying somebody else, Reece Martin.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think for me, Tom Davis.
Yeah, big.
He's not really been spoken about, is he? He's sort of a bit.
And this isn't a kid who was never like played for Wigan, Catalan.
Yeah,
he's great, and I think again he's got a point to prove because he won the best last year.
Yeah, David Johnson asked about the 17 for the Cas game. We'll answer that one in a couple of Robin Pod's time.
Probably easier after the York or Keighley game because you never know. He'll play full tilt against them 100%, and fingers crossed we don't, but we might not have players available. It's natural, isn't it? So we might as well wait until that.
And Adam Lindop here asked, should Rovers target the Challenge Cup? You've already said yes. You've put them
challenge everything.
You've put them on nailed on to win it. So go lump on. Which is our poorest position within the best 13 lads starting? Well, that's a difficult one, isn't
it? Centre, 𝗀𝗲𝗏.
Yeah.
Centre, probably. And that's why I know it's not going to happen now. I was really hoping Nene would sign McDonald, but and that's no disrespect to 𝗀𝗏𝗏 because like we spoke about earlier, I think he's a great player, but all we can do is base off last season and we can't take the new signings into account. So I'm not going to come here and say, oh, Tom Davis is not right and all because it's a new era, but just last year who's still in that starting 13, 𝗀𝗏𝗏, we've spoke about why. So it's not a weak position because this is a bloke who's played for Great Britain and 3 NRL clubs, just probably shows that where we're at.
Yeah. Very quickly, Joe, great news. Sean Kennedy-Dowell, he loves it here, doesn't he? He's signed on for a new contract to stay. I mean, he's obviously enjoying working under Willie Peters, working with Danny Ward, under Hodgson. He enjoys being around the players still. Don't forget, he's very good mates with JWH, 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗏. He's had his baby here. You know, he's someone who's really bought into Hull Kingston Rovers. And Hull Kingston Rovers, to be fair, bought into him as well. I think it's mutual. The love and respect and admiration we all have for each other. How can you not love SKD? You know, he's just, what a guy.
Well, he's the reason. Let's call a spade a spade. If Sean Kennedy-Dowell wasn't Rovers' assistant, Jared Warrior-Hargreaves wouldn't be playing for 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏.
No. So
he has got that law still in Australia and New Zealand. Willie Peters has as well from what he's done in this small-time coaching, but Sean Kennedy-Dowell plays a big part in getting players over and people wanting to work for 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 because of his name. You know, it's synonymous, isn't it, with the great era of recent rugby league in the NRL and stuff, and that amazing Roosters and New Zealand team and who came over here. Nobody gave him a chance after an awful first season and has turned out to be one of the club's greatest ever centres, hasn't he, and players because he's amazing. And yeah, good bloke. glad that he's here. And again, someone who is very grateful for what Rose have given him, and he absolutely loves it. I didn't think he'd still be here personally after that first year. If someone had have said 5-6 years later he's going to be another assistant still. But again, we're helping him in his coaching, and we haven't brought in another coach, have we, to replace Brett Delaney. So Skids is one of the assistants proper now, which I think is great. Trust in the process, trust in that development line.
Yeah, great. Joe, wow, we got through loads there. We haven't even mentioned about the fact that the Robins are developing 15 acres of land behind the East Stand, and the ongoing developments, or the round one sellout that people like to call as that into sellout, you know, the magnifying glass. These are out these spotting empty seats. But anyway, Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've got the Amsterdam Challenge on Saturday. If you guys are there listening to this, you know, this is great for on the plane or on the ferry. Have a great time. Represent the Robins superbly, like you always do. It's going to be a fantastic occasion. Amsterdam's a wonderful place. We're going to get the chance to see some Robins in action. The season is just a few weeks away. We are massively excited. We've got a couple of Robin pods coming. Steve Tilby joining us for Robins Forever. We've got lots of new features. The Robin pod over and out for the first time in 2025. Thanks for joining, Joe.
Cheers, pal. Up the Robins.
Singing a song when the red robin comes bobbing, when the red